Hello, welcome to episode 12 of Debra Quilts Lots and Knits Bits. I'm Debra McCracken and I quilt lots and I knit a little bit. So I come here on occasion to have a little chat about what I've been working on, what I've finished, and just a few little general things. So welcome, and if you're joining us for a second or third or fourth or 12th time, well, thank you very much. I appreciate you coming back. Don't forget to subscribe down below, and then you'll get notification of when I do a new video. So, 2020, it's the beginning of a new year. We just spent the first 2 weeks of the year in Playa del Carmen. We went down there on January 4th. We stopped in Calgary and had dinner with our children. And then we jumped on another plane and we flew to Cancun, and then our friend that we were staying with picked us up at the airport, which was very kind of him. And we had 2 weeks of the grand tour. We had motorcycles to ride while we were there, and we went to quite a few places that we've never seen. That's our third time we've been to that area, and we saw the most in the 2 weeks that we were there this time. Last year we went at the end of February, early March, and it was like about 40 degrees was the average temperature, and it was very humid and sticky. And this time, first 2 weeks of January, average temperature was about 30 degrees. And it was still humid and sticky. I forgot about the sticky part. And that's not my favorite thing. And so, I don't know. I think next time we'll try something different. But like I say, we had a lovely trip. We saw a ton of stuff. We met lots of cool people. And our housemates were a blast. They kept us laughing the whole time. And I was very content to have my coffee in the morning on the deck, and then I would go downstairs and probably have breakfast and then sit by the pool with my knitting. And when I got too hot, I would jump in the pool and swim a few lengths, and then I would get out and I would dry off a little bit, and I would sit and knit until I was dry again. And then, I'd have my afternoon, I'd have a nice cold beer and some snacks, and then get dressed for dinner, and yeah, we had a great time. Was able to visit with Lori and Phil from Nelson. They were there too, staying in they usually go down for 3 months in the winter, 3 or 4 months, and met just tons of interesting people. Very interesting. And no, we had a great time. We had a great time. So thank you to Mick and Rick for taking care of us and entertaining us and showing us around. We really appreciate it. So consequently, I have a bit of a tan. So I have very little makeup on today. I'm sure Ray will say, you should have put some makeup on. But that's okay. So while we were there, Mick took me to the fabric store because he said, oh, I gotta go to the bank. Come, there's a fabric store right there. Come and see what that's all about. And I tell you what, I put some pictures on my Facebook page, on the Debra Quilts Lots page, and it was like, at this level, eye level, it was like being in a forest of fabric. When we get fabric here, it's taken off the big long roll and folded in half and put on the bolt. There, they don't take it off the big long roll. They just stack those rolls up on tables, and they're 45 inches high, or some are 60 inches wide, and like that's for a person who's only about 5 feet and have stuff on a table. It was like, say, being in a forest of fabric, and you couldn't walk through the aisles without bumping into stuff. Like, I was terrified I was going to knock a whole table over. And It was jam-packed. I didn't take any pictures of the notion counter, which I wish I had, because it was kind of like an old-fashioned notion counter that you see in the movies, that like all the buttons were in drawers, and you had to choose, and then somebody would get them for you. And there was little cubbies on the wall, like shelves with all the different things in them, and there was a person behind the counter that would get those for you. And I thought, that's pretty cool. And it was a very effective way to display the notions, because it didn't take up a whole bunch of room. And they sure had a ton of stuff. It was huge. I didn't even get from one end to the other. Like I say, I was kind of terrified of knocking things over. And they had racks and racks and racks and racks of ribbons, and like racks and racks and racks and racks. So, I mean, it was very, very cool. So the only thing that I could even wrap my head around buying was a ball of yarn, and it's called Helen Cannon Bold, and it's 10% alpaca, 15% mohair, and 75% acrylic. So, yes. So, that was the only time I was left out on my own in Mexico, and the cashier, who was in kind of a glass box, and then people would pay her, and then they would go over to another glass box and get their stuff. So I think I did things wrong. But anyway, she said that it was 52 pesos, and she said it in Spanish. And so I handed her a 100 peso bill, because that's what I had. And so 100 pesos is about $6 or $7. So this is probably about $3 or $4. Good deal. So anyway, she asked me another question, and I just couldn't even answer. She was asking me if I had 2 pesos so that she could just give me a 50 back. My resort Spanish did me no good at the fabric store. So I don't think I could have bought any fabric if I wanted to. They had some very cool stuff. But so I was mortified that I couldn't answer or understand. And the lady behind me, she had to roll her eyes and translated for me, but I was pretty embarrassed. Anyway, had I said cerveza, por favor, because that's my Spanish, the extent of my Spanish, and the girl handed me a beer, I would have probably shopped a lot more. But I just was, like I say, I was kind of embarrassed, and I just wanted to get out of there. Anyway, so that was my Mexican fabric store experience. But next time, I will have brushed up on my Spanish. I'll know how to ask for 1 meter or 2 meters of fabric, and I will know how to count so that I know what the numbers are. And I'll take a bigger suitcase, because they had some very cool things, like mostly fashion fabrics in that store, but they had lots of fleeces with prints on them, like minky kind of stuff that would be just so fun for the back of a baby quilt. There was one with a great big teddy bear on it, and so yeah, it's just too fun. Anyway, so that being said, we were gone for 2 weeks. So now there's 50 weeks left in the year. And at this time, at the end of the year, you kind of get overwhelmed with your planning for the beginning of the next year, right? Everybody's talking about bullet journaling and resolutions and blah, blah, blah. And so I thought, well, I'm going to do something this year, because my planning never, ever works. I never seem to plan well enough to not be overwhelmed. And 10 minutes ago, I was talking to my husband, telling him how overwhelmed I am already because of all the stuff that I've committed to before the end of February. And so, it's it still hasn't worked. Anyway, because I have 50 weeks left in my year, and I think I'll be here for most of them, I chunked my year up into 5-week increments. So what that means is just like, instead of having like a month, because I can't seem to get anything done in a month, so I figured, well, maybe 5 weeks is the sweet spot. So I went through my calendar and chunked off, like starting Monday the 20th of January, which is the day after we got home, and worked out what 5 weeks was till the next Sunday, and then the Monday after that, and 5 weeks and 5 weeks and 5 weeks. And then I split things up into business, like for Debra Quilt Slots, and the goals that I need to complete for that. Things like doing a new episode of Debra Quilt Slots and Knits Bits, and, you know, when it comes to tax time and all that kind of stuff. And then I'm going to have a column with my customer quilts, and they get done in the order that they arrive, usually, unless there's somebody with a deadline. And usually, you know, I know about the deadline before the quilt gets here, so I get their slot in there and that kind of thing. And then this year I added a personal goal column too. There's lots of things that we don't take care of, and ourselves is the big one. So I'm happy to say I've already completed a couple of things on my personal list. One included going and getting x-rays on my ankle that I sprained on December 3rd or 4th. So, yeah, things like that. Because I've never been capable of taking care of my own stuff until the very last second. And then it's always a rush, and it's never done properly. So, anyway, that's what I am trying this year. I'm going to, I chunked my year out into 10 5-week increments, and hoping that all works out. And you know what? If it does, it does. If it doesn't, the time's going to go by anyway, and some things are going to get done. So, hey, maybe I shouldn't worry about it at all. So, another thing I decided to do this year, I did join a Finish It Along on Instagram, and somebody on there has done up some very great pages for quilting. Where you list your projects, and there's a column for each stage of the project. So, like, you know, one for picking out your fabric, one for cutting, piecing, quilting, binding, that kind of stuff. So I've seen some beautiful color-coded lists of people's to-do lists and that kind of thing. And I did do myself a very sparse Q1 finish along list for Q1, and that's on my Instagram. And I'm doing manageable things this year. I'm not going to overpromise myself and underdeliver, because I tend to do that. So, and then I have a couple of friends from the Modern Guild, and they have their own hashtag, and it's I think it's Nadia and Felicity Get Shit Done. So, yay girls. And then Michelle's kind of piggybacking on that too, and they're doing amazing things, and they're reporting in and accountable to each other every week, and I think that's awesome. And you know, I'm envious. Anyway, they both work full-time, and then they quilt and take care of families and that kind of stuff too. So you know what, I got way more done when I worked full-time and had a kid at home and all kinds of things going on. So I don't know what's going on now. Anyway, so rather than take all of my UFOs and put them on a big list, I thought, you know what, I'm going to celebrate my accomplishments this year. And instead of a to-do list, I'm going to have a ta-da list. So every time I finish a project, I'm going to put it on my ta-da list. This is just something to show you. I'm going to do a nice fancy piece. And so the only thing I have finished so far this year, because I was away, is my Modern Guild challenge piece. And you'll see there it says 2020-1. I have, in years past, wanted to number my quilts, like my friend Sharon does. And I think I've talked about this before. And she learned that in her beginner class, like when you put a label on your quilt, number it, and you just keep track. So a couple of years ago, I thought, well, I'll number my quilts this year, and I forgot about it all until like February or March, and then I started trying to list them, and I couldn't list them. So anyway, this year, on January 1st, I finished my Modern Challenge quilt. The Poppins gave us a package of fabric that included black and white, and then a multicolored fabric, and then our challenge was to add one solid color and do something modern with it. So if you're in the Penticton area, they are hanging up at Poppins Quilt Parlor for a couple more weeks until February, and today is January 22nd, I should mention that. And you can vote on them. So I can't show you a picture until after the voting's all done, and I'm not going to tell you which one is mine. I can tell you that there are a lot of beautiful quilts there, and everybody did such a fantastic job, and a lot of people put a lot of effort in and really did a sharp thing. And it's so cool to see what different stuff everybody came up with, even though we were all given the same amount of fabric and the same fabrics, and then asked to add one more. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, there are 25 entries out of, I think we have 38 members at the Okanagan Modern Quilt Guild, which meets the second Wednesday of the month in the evening at the Summerland Arts Center in Summerland at 7 o'clock, and we usually go till about 9. So, you know, if you're interested in coming take a look and seeing what we are up to, you are more than welcome to join us. We've got some classes coming up. We're doing improv letters with Felicity in February sometime, and I can't even remember the lady that's coming to teach in March or April. Anyway, so there's always something going on, and it's always interesting, and we always have some kind of program at our meetings that, you know, really keeps us all going, and it's a great energy, nice crowd of quilters. So because we're talking about quilting, I'll just talk about this one. I don't think it's been shown before. This is a BQ3, and they were the 18-inch blocks, and the paisley fabric was just too pretty to cut up into little pieces. So I used to have my great friend Jean just across the street, and she would piece for me, and I would quilt for her, and it worked out really well, and she pieced this one for me. So thank you, Jean Hitchens. Yeah, so I just thought we need something bright and colorful today, because it's kind of, Penticton is a little bit overcast in the winter time, and that's why we went to the sunshine early in the winter, because it's really needed in this house. So anyway, other quilting projects I'm working on. I'm testing a pattern for somebody, and it's behind here, so I can't show you until it's released, and I think it's going to be the first little bits are coming out in February. So I'm just because I'm just testing and I'm just using scraps, and it's going together very well. It's a very well written pattern so far. Anyway, that's the only clue I'm giving you. The other quilty thing I could talk about is Fibrophilia Fest in June this year. It's 20-something of June up in New Denver, BC, and I will be teaching a collage quilting class. So collage quilting is where you just take motifs and components of fabric and cut them out. So you would cut out like this paisley and use it for a specific part of an animal or a scene or whatever. And it's a lot of fun, and I don't know that I've ever shown my giraffe. She's not finished yet. She's sort of quilted, but she really needs she needs a lot more. So I will get to that eventually. It could come up on my finish along list. So anyway, I thought I would show you my finished things from after my last podcast. I'm a little bit cold. I think I still have a little chilliness from being in 30 degrees for a couple weeks and coming home to, +5 or whatever. So I've got my mom's sweater on, and it's like the hug from my mom, and she knitted it back in the 80s, before my daughter was born, so that was before 1988. And all I had to do was add this button band on, but I didn't add any buttonholes and bands. But underneath, I have on my Extapa sweater. So it has, pardon me, it's got this little detail underneath all down the arm, a little lace hem on the sleeves, and that's on the bottom as well. And it does come down, and it covers my butt. It comes down past my hips and covers my butt, which I like. And I could wear this over a little dress, or I could wear it over leggings, or I could wear it with jeans. So I'm pretty happy with it. The neckline back here is a little bit loose. I think I could probably either take the bind off out and do it up a little tighter, or my friend Elsie said I could put a little elastic thread in there, and that might tighten it up too. So that's the Extapa sweater on me finally. I've been working on that one since I got the yarn in April. Probably got a good real start on it in May or June or something like that. And then here are Frank's well-worn, well-loved Grinch socks. These were pair number 3, and I was a little bit anxious to get them done, so I think I shorted them a little bit in the cuff. So he asked me if I would put on a little bit more at the top, and I think I will. But he does wear them a lot. He likes them. And now that it's not Christmas anymore, he's still wearing them. So what better compliment is that? Let me ask you. The other thing that I'm working on these these socks. And they are out of my Joy of Socks book. And of course I didn't bring it down with me. And I don't know what the name of them are. I think they're called Arrow socks. Anyway, there's a lace on the top of the foot, which is very difficult to see in this colorway. And there's the colorway. It's called Slow Can Lake, and it's from Riverstone Yarns in Caslow. And it is merino cashmere sock yarn, 80% merino, 10% cashmere, and 10% nylon. So these are for me. I'm knitting them toe up, and they're probably going to be short socks, so that maybe I can get another pair of short ones out of the skein for Frank. or me, whatever. Anyway, so I do knit them 2 at a time magic loop, because if I only knit 1 at a time, I probably won't get the second one done. And it does take a bit longer because you're spending a lot of time pulling the needle, the cable through and all that. But I think it's okay. You know, I'm comfortable with that method now, so I just keep using it until I find something else, I guess. And the other thing I've been working on that I sat by the pool and knitted on is the Volition Sweater. So I have the armholes done, and I think I know I'm going to make the cardigan. So this is it's called the Rick Rack Rib. Oh, that looks nice on there. That goes all the way around the back of the neck, which are these little pieces here, and then goes all the way down the front and around the bottom hem, and it's got some shaping around the bottom. So it's called the Volition Sweater because there were 3 different finishes that you could use for the ribbing, and 2 different ways to do it as a cardigan or a pullover. And it's a Patty Lyons, Lyons, online video class, knit along kind of class, and which is awesome because I get to a certain point and I'm thinking, oh, I know how to do that, and then I start doing it and I'm like, it doesn't look right. So I can go back and look at the video and I can see what I'm doing wrong, see what I'm doing right, and I can fix it or start over again. So this is the 4th time. Woohoo! 4 times a charm. Anyway, when we left for Mexico, all I had done was the upper back. So I did the front and joined under the arms. And I don't know how much further I have to go, but I'm going to keep working on it. And I'm going to get it done because it's kind of fun and I'm learning a lot as I go. Like I say, when I get to a point where I'm just like totally clueless, I click on the video for that portion. There's like 20 some videos that come with the pattern, and you know, it's pretty clear, and she shows you how to do everything, whether you're English style knitter or continental knitter, or she also shows you backwards knitting. So instead of purling, you knit, 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 and instead of purling, you knit backwards. And haven't mastered that yet. And the girls on the Wet Coast Wools podcast were talking about that today. They have a bingo program going on, and there's a bingo square where you knit a whole item in a new technique. So, you know, if you need to be challenged in your knitting, check out the Wet Coast Wools podcast and website, and I think the Ravelry group has the bingo thing on it. So I'm looking around and I'm thinking, you know what, that's all I have to share with you today. I've got quite a few quilts to quilt. I've got a couple of commission quilts that I have to finish before the end of February. I have the Penticton Quilters Guild retreat coming up in the middle of February, and we're going to have fun at that. I still have to figure out what project we're going to do. We usually do a little group project and make a community quilt, which is, you know, given to community services or hospice or something like that. There's a group of volunteers at the Quilt Guild that determine all that stuff, and they do a wonderful job, and they ensure that the quilts get distributed where they're needed the most. So that's lots of fun. And then after that, we'll see. I'll probably talk to you before then. Hope so. Anyway, happy knitting, happy quilting, happy making, and enjoy the fresh brand new year, and we will talk to you soon. Thanks for watching.